Hello and welcome to the Amherst Conservation Commission meeting of May 28th, 2025. The time is 7:05. We have all members present except Laura and staff present Dave Zomick and Aaron Jock. So let's see, jumping right in, chair's report. Just a reminder to the commissioners, we're gonna have for our land use subcommittee materials, we're gonna do the hunting review regulations. So we're gonna be moving up the hearings a little earlier for the next meeting to accommodate that discussion at the end of the meeting. So look out for that in your packets. Um, that's all I have, so I'll hand it over to Dave for the director's report.
Sure. Thanks, Michelle. A couple of updates for the commission. We're, end of May here. We're beginning to kind of move into field season. I wish we had better news on summer staff, seasonal staff. It's always kind of just an unpredictable thing. We don't have a lot of funding for summer staff. I wish we had more, but we will be bringing on a few people part-time this summer, probably starting around the middle of June to support Brad and Anthony in their work out there. A lot of rain, a lot of keeping trails open, mowing trails, places like Mont Pollux and the trails at Wentworth Farm, keeping trailheads accessible and some of the growth in check. No field mowing this time of year with birds nesting and butterflies and such. So for the most part, this is just trail mowing. We get lots of concern about poison ivy and ticks, of course. We'll be starting Puffer's Pond testing next week. We usually start around Memorial Day. It was a short week this week with the holiday, so we depend on the DPW and the wastewater treatment plant for support in doing the tests and interpreting the tests. So those will start early next week, and the results will be posted on our website as usual, as is our normal. Come later in June, we'll be moving into kind of project-based, more project-specific things. We'll be doing some work at Hickory. There was some damage to our soon-to-be opened ADA trail on the south side of the Fort River. There was some, modest damage from the flooding and the flash storms we had, so erosional action there. By the way, the clubhouse is down. If you haven't been by, it's all loamed and seeded, and we hope to be mowing some nice grass there and adding to the pervious surface there in the weeks ahead. So it's really nice to have that eyesore off the land.
Good job, Dave.
Parking lot improvements, as I mentioned, we are looking at some modest adjustments, things like replacing some of the old worn, tired split rail fencing with more, I guess you'd call them bumpers. I call them bumpers, wooden guardrails, if you will, that have more longevity than the split rail. We find the split rail lasts about 5 years and it's done, and it's very expensive. Of course, we'll be managing Puffer's Pond this summer, and we'll see how the E. coli levels go. Aaron and I participated in a meeting about a week ago with our health director, field staff, sustainability director, really kind of charting a path of more robust testing at Puffers. So we'll be doing additional tests each week around the edges of Puffers. And then once a month, we'll be going upstream on the Cushman Brook and tributaries, kind of really trying to get a baseline of what the water quality looks like entering Puffer's Pond. So that'll be starting next week as well. We'll be supporting the community gardens. Community gardeners always have needs out there at Fort River and Fort River Farm and Amethyst Brook. I was in a meeting today apropos of our discussions some months ago about the community gardens. I was in a meeting with Stephanie Ciccarello, our sustainability director, and our building commissioner, talking about installing cisterns, large cisterns at both those locations. So we are in the process of ordering those, and it'll take some time to get those set up. So we'll report back to you on where that stands. But in the meantime, the pump is working at Fort River Farm, and honestly, I've not checked on the pump at Amethyst. So those are some of the projects looking forward. We're also trying to finish up our sign design project that Aaron and I have reported to you on. This is working with a designer out of Northampton for a full branding redesign of all of our signs across the town for conservation areas and recreation areas. And thanks to some great work by Aaron and others on our staff, we're really making some good progress on that. There's a lot of signs out there, and none of them match. They're from different decades. It was fascinating when we actually did the inventory. But the idea is to slowly, we'll pick the priority signs to replace and move through that process. The CPA funds for that project have been approved by the council. So after July 1, we'll be thinking about fabrication, and we'll bring back, we'll report back to you on what the final, what the design looks like, get some feedback from you, and we'll talk about how to institute that replacement program. I doubt we're going to have enough money for all the signs, to be honest. We also want to make sure we don't create more signs that are necessary out there. We don't need the trails to look like, Route 91, for goodness sakes. We want to keep it tasteful and not get too much sign pollution out there on the trails and on our public ways. So that's kind of a smattering of things we'll be working on out in the field. Any questions? I'm happy to take them.
Thanks, Dave. Yeah, go ahead, Alex.
Full of your time.
Yeah, and Dave, when you said, I believe you said you were gonna sample at Buffer's Pond, that you were gonna sample the water entering the pond. That's Cushman Brook, correct?
Yes.
And give me an idea how far up you would go?
We're gonna go up as far as our permissions allow us to go. We own a lot of the land upstream of buffers, but we're gonna seek permission from a couple of private landowners to sample on their property as well. Because the Cushman Brook quickly goes up, and it's Doolittle, and it branches out in Doolittle, and I'm blanking on the due north tributary. Maybe Aaron knows that, but I think it branches to Doolittle going up towards Shutesbury, and there's one that goes due north, and I'm
Well,
blanking on
Cushman Brook joins Doolittle at that
that, okay.
intersection, and then
So
it
it's
becomes Cushman
coming
Brook.
down from the north and Doolittle coming in from the east.
Yep.
Thanks, Aaron.
That would be wonderful data. That will say a lot.
Mhm.
Thank you for
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, and talking to water quality experts, they've also suggested testing outside of the May to September time period, because if it's dogs, for example, that would be year round and independent of any temperature. But anyway, the
Yeah.
different topic. And back
I
to the
will,
sign.
if I
Yep.
could say, just to that point, I mean, our sampling in the Amethyst and the Fort River, for instance, upstream of Amethyst Brook and downstream of Amethyst Brook, have not suggested any real significant difference that might suggest dog waste there. I would just say as one set of data for the Amethyst Fort. But again, it's just one sample, and there's a lot of dog and a lot of dog waste at Amethyst. So I'm not really looking at, I don't think, I'm happy to be wrong, but I don't think dogs are the big factor here. I think there are
I
other
see.
factors.
You're not targeting that. Well,
We're also looking at the sediments in buffers, because the research suggests looking at sediments over a period of time, that may be a significant factor in the proliferation of bacteria, like E. coli. So we'll look at everything.
So while I
interesting.
still have the floor, if I may, just thumbs in the air. Good, it's great to hear about working on the water supply at the two community gardens. I think that's terrific.
Thank you. Yep. It'll take a little time, but we'll get there on all these fronts with.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to the signage, I know you're sensitive about the sign pollution or whatnot, but I am looking forward to some dogs on leash signage to,
Yes.
for
Yeah, that'll be,
clear guidance to folks.
yeah, once
Great.
we have the final RAND, if you will, and you've seen some of them, we'll bring those back to you. It'll be pretty easy to insert, it'll have the town seal on it and the kind of maroon and white, and it'll be pretty easy to insert the official, dogs must be on leash, whatever the verbiage we want, and it'll be consistent with the branding across recreation areas and conservation areas. So a place like we started looking, just FYI, we started looking at the area between Route 63 and above Puffer's Pond, thereabouts. And that has both recreation land and conservation land, lots of trails, open recreation fields. And so we really looked at that linkage, that synergy between our branding of signs for recreation areas and conservation areas, including the whole dog walking and dog waste issue, Michelle.
Great. Alex, yeah.
Since you brought it up, I just wanted to ask if there were the signage at Amethyst and Mill River will put people on notice that their privilege to have dogs off leash will be ended for a period of time if they abuse that privilege.
We will have, the signs will be limited in messaging, but the kiosk, the new kiosk, I think I mentioned, we were able to get a grant for, a number of new kiosks. We have already 12 in stock and we'll be ordering more. Some of the central areas like Amethyst will have we're working with Kestrel on that. That will have a brand new larger kiosk. So there will be room for some narrative there, and we can, kind of get input on what the messaging should be there. But yeah, there definitely will be reference to, obviously the Conservation Commission promulgates rules and regulations on conservation land. And so there will be reference where appropriate on the kiosks relative to dog walking, dogs on leash, and dog waste.
All right, thanks, Dave.
Lovely if people got actually put on notice that they can lose the privilege.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's move on. We don't have any land management subcommittee updates other than what I already mentioned, so,
Can I say something about that though?
sorry?
You did mention it, but there is an agenda item. Can I give a little heads up on what we're gonna do, what that document's all about?
Yeah, sure.
First of all, I want to apologize. I thought I had sent it to Aaron a long time ago because it was produced while the subcommittee was still in session. And it is a document that it's not a rule, it's a set of alternatives. And in order to participate in, it's going to take several meetings to go through it and have the commission make a decision. So I hope everybody spends some time reading it. It's about 13 pages. And in order to participate in the discussion, you have to read and understand the document. So please do. That's all I'll say. Now, I will send it to Erin first thing tomorrow. And I apologize. I thought I'd already sent it to her.
Thanks, Alex. All right, so please come prepared, commissioners. Okay, now moving on to conservation land use applications. The first one up is the mass pollinator study at Wentworth Farm Conservation Area. So this is something that, as far as I've been around, we've been doing annually. They provided a good description of what their intent is. Does anyone have any questions or comments about this? They also have been diligent about providing a report at the end of the year, which we appreciate.
Did Andre go away?
I don't see him present. He's okay, his camera is off, so he's here. Okay. Seeing none on this, looking for a motion to approve the mass pollinator study at Wentworth Farm Conservation Area. And I don't have the dates in front of me, but I think we're good with that.
So moved.
Second.
Alex on the motion, Jason on the second, Rachel,
Aye.
Alex,
Aye.
Jason,
Aye.
Bruce,
Aye.
Andre,
Aye.
and I'm an aye. Okay, next up is the geocache request for Harkness Brook Conservation Area. Definitely appreciate the submission of a land use application for this one. I didn't have any issues with it. I mean, I guess the only communication, Aaron, that maybe we could provide is just to be mindful that people are going to be walking around the area looking for it, so not to put it near vernal pool or anything. I don't know if they have a specific location identified, but just being cognizant of any kind of sensitive areas around the chosen location. Are there any questions or comments on this from commissioners? All right, seeing none, looking for a motion to approve the geocache request for Harkness Brook Conservation Area.
So moved.
Second.
Jason on the motion, Rachel on the second. Rachel,
Aye.
Bruce,
Aye.
Alex,
Aye.
Jason,
Aye.
Andre,
Aye.
I'm an aye. What's the time? Okay, so we have a few minutes to get to other business. Can we do Emerson Court for certificate of compliance, Erin? Thanks.
Sure. So Emerson Court request for certificate of compliance came in last fall, actually, and when I went out to do the compliance check from the completion of construction, the one outstanding item that I documented was that they hadn't planted the tree that was required to be planted to replace the oak tree that was growing on top of the previous culvert head wall. So I reached out to Bucky and said, we're missing our replacement tree. And I followed up with him this spring and the tree has been planted. I went out and documented it and photographed it. And I apologize if that didn't make it in the folder, but I was out there and confirmed it. And otherwise, the certificate of compliance is ready to be issued. There are some ongoing maintenance conditions associated with some of the stormwater structures. So I would just say that we issue a complete certificate of compliance with the ongoing maintenance conditions that are required as part of the order.
Is there any questions, comments from commissioners? Okay, looking for a motion to approve the request for a certificate of compliance with the ongoing maintenance conditions.
So moved.
Second.
Alex on the motion, Andre on the second, Rachel,
Aye.
Bruce,
Aye.
Alex,
Aye.
Jason,
Aye.
Andre,
Aye.
I'm an aye.
At this rate, we'll be done early.
Don't jinx us. All right, so Northeast Street, do you think we can do that in 7 minutes?
Sure. So I've been giving you guys regular compliance updates on 433 Northeast Street. The owner did hire Ward Smith to go out and have a look at the site, and Ward kind of had a heart-to-heart with the owner as far as what work had been done and what work was outstanding to be proposed to be done. You may recall that I had asked them to file an after-the-fact notice of intent for the work that had been completed without a permit, which included wetland fill and clearing in a wetland. And also they indicated that they were proposing to bring in fill to level their front yard and put in a fence and a bunch of other activities that they wanted to do. Ward was out there with them and basically suggested that they not pursue the additional work because of the wetland impacts, and basically Ward has suggested that the Conservation Commission issue an enforcement order allowing work to proceed to remove the fill from the wetland under his observation. So Ward would actually be out on site as the fill is being removed in order to supervise and guide the owner as far as the extent of fill that needs to be removed based on the wetland filling. So what's unique about an enforcement order is it allows work like that to move forward without an order of conditions. And so that's what Ward is requesting from the Conservation Commission, is to issue the enforcement order allowing that wetland restoration work to take place.
Thank you, Erin. Did everybody get a chance to look at the letter from Ward? Or
And
if
this
not,
letter did come in today.
okay.
It's I thought it was just timely in the sense that this work was done without a permit and it needs to be restored, so I wanted to get it before the commission. But if folks haven't had time to review it, that's completely understandable.
I mean, we can pull it up if someone needs to review it, but I agree that this is time sensitive. So if we can move forward with this, that would be in the best interest of the wetland. Bruce?
My question can come after we make a decision about this.
Okay. All right. Does anyone raise your hand if you'd like Aaron to put up the letter on the screen, or is everybody able to view it? And are there any questions or comments on this one? So essentially we're doing a restoration, pulling out, pulling back the fill and regrading, resloping.
And restabilizing, reseeding.
Yeah. Alex?
I did not have time to review the letter. I'm happy to listen to Erin's report and her advice. And I don't feel the strong need to take the time to read the letter if it's lengthy. So I'm looking for advice from the chair, whether or not I have to read the letter in order to participate.
No, it is a short letter. Let's see. Okay, so I'll just read the bullet point. So there's erosion controls in place. So this is the letter that Ward sent to Aaron with his recommendations for remediation for this. Have an excavator pull back from the edge of the wetland, pull the fill back from the edge of the wetland while being supervised by a wetland scientist, and the fill would be removed from all areas that contain hydric soils and or wetland hydrology. All fill will be removed from the site. Once the original wetland boundary has been determined, remove fill from the inner buffer zone down to a grade that results in a slope of no steeper than 2:1. So the restored wetland area with New England wetland plant mix at recommended rates. So the slope with an erosion control seed measure. And lastly, plant the buffer zone within 25 feet of the restored wetland boundary with a mixture of native shrubs at 6-foot spacing. So 1 shrub per 36 square feet. It's a fairly straightforward approach with, I think, suitable mitigation criteria. So is there any questions about those actions or recommendations from Ward?
The only thing that I would add, and I think honestly, this is a best case scenario, is that several trees were cut in the course of the work that was done that were cut in the wetland itself. So just whether and this is a discussion item, whether the commission would want to entertain planting of a couple trees in the wetland to replace the ones that were cut down in the wetland.
So
Hold on, Andre?
Yeah, I would entertain that. I'm also curious, you had contacted them and did a cease and desist, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. And after the cease and desist, they continued for a day or two? Is that things, in other words, work was done after that, right?
That is my understanding, yes. I was monitoring it during my conversations. And so the first day I noticed the cutting, I called and left a message and said, stop cutting. And then went by again and saw that there was piles of fill in the back. So I called again and said, it looks like work is continuing. I need you to stop. I sent a letter telling them to stop and saying I've documented more work. And then after that time, I noticed that there was a significant amount of fill that had been placed on the site. And by the time I got there for a permitted site visit, it had all been stabilized with seed and straw and right up to the wetland edge. I mean, granted, they were cooperative. They did install erosion controls. So I have to appreciate that folks have been cooperative in, working, and they're continuing to be cooperative. But yeah, I agree that work continued after they were told to stop.
Yeah, right. So to me, it doesn't seem like anybody, like somebody's cooperative if you ask them to stop doing something that's illegal and they continue to do it until you finally tell them that you're going to do something. This is a law enforcement officer you're talking about, right? That house?
Um, I believe so, yes.
Yeah, I drive by there a lot. Yeah. So where's the excuse?
Yeah.
No excuse. So they need to do whatever they can to make that right.
It seems like they're now in a position where they seem to want to undo the damage. So we are in the position to tell them what exactly we'd like to see. And I'll just, while I'm talking, Aaron, maybe we can add some like long-term performance standards to this so we know that those shrubs are still doing well and still there several years later.
You don't mind me
Yeah.
concluding?
Yep, sorry, go ahead.
I'm just going to conclude by saying that I do support anything that we can do to have them bring everything back to normal. That's where I was going with my conversation or with my.
Okay.
Another idea, just based on your comment, Michelle, is that we ask for bounding. So, placement of bounds at the wetland edge so that in the future it's clear where that boundary is and there's no confusing it.
Yeah, agree. I think Bruce was next.
I still want to comment
Okay.
after we're done.
Got it. Alex?
Yeah, so they cut a tree, and what I hear is that they will replace that tree. And then, so my question is, what is the ratio expected for replacement? Is it 1-to-1, 2-to-1, 3-to-1?
So there was a number of trees cut, and I understand from the owner that some of the trees were cut because they considered them to be hazard trees, sort of leaning towards the driveway and the house, and they were concerned about, storm damage from the trees hitting their cars. So that's a difficult thing to review after the fact. If I had seen the trees and could have confirmed that, it would have been a simple removal. But I wasn't able to do that. So I would suggest maybe like 3 or 4 trees along the wetland edge where the trees were removed.
So all the trees that were cut were in the wetland?
Yes.
I mean, wetland comes pretty close to the house and the driveway.
Does it?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Well, I mean, I hate, sorry, Alex Region, I just wanted to, not replace hazard trees with more hazard trees. So maybe something that would high stature shrubs, low stature trees, something that wouldn't create a perceived issue for them in the future as they grow up.
Yeah, so yes, if they cut down a tree that's 8 inches or 10 inches and you put in a tree that has a caliper of 1 inch, that's not replacement. So I would hope that there would be a ratio, well placed. I don't, low stature, high stature trees, I too don't want to replace a hazard tree with another one, but it'll be a while before those trees perform their previous functions, one of which is to pull water from the wetland through evapotranspiration, and that will not be replaced on a 1-to-1 ratio for a long time.
Jason?
It appears that they did work in the back as well, further back from the driveway. Can we suggest that they move the trees? If those trees were hazardous by the driveway, can we suggest that they plant them in the back as opposed to just right where they were?
Yeah, I mean, I would suggest that we have Ward work with them to appropriately place them in locations that are not going to present a hazard to their driveway.
Yep, I agree.
And throughout the extent of the area where the violation occurred.
Yeah, so let's just give a number for replacement trees and board can work with them on the placement of the trees. And we're just acknowledging they probably won't be in the same place. In terms of, Jason, is your hand still up or did you have it? Okay.
No.
So in terms of the other criteria that we're giving guidance on, there was Ward's guidance. We've also discussed having a performance time period and some marking, and then replacement trees at 1-to-1, but at their discretion where they put them. Is there anything else that people would like to see to remediate this?
I suggested something more than 1-to-1,
Okay, what would you like to see
4-to-1.
for trees?
Yeah,
Okay, do you want to run that by Ward and see if that's
Yeah,
doable?
I mean, just having seen the site, I think that's a little aggressive for the area. So in terms of stumps, I maybe saw 5 trees growing. So, you know, if we're going to go for shrubs or small trees, I just know like in the location of where the trees are proposed, if we put them too concentrated in together, that they're not going to survive or be successful. So I'd rather, I mean, I think 2-to-1 would be a good sort of middle ground potentially.
Okay, 2-to-1, and they're not going to go in the same place probably, but we're also having shrub plantings, so there's additional coverage that will be happening.
I'm happy.
Okay, Rachel?
Do we know why they did the work? Was there something they were trying to address on site? Did they ever say?
They didn't know that it was wetland. They were trying to expand their yard to be more usable, I think, because it
Okay.
was sort of low lying and wet.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay. All right, so I think we've come to a conclusion about the feedback we'd like to give Ward, and then they'll probably come back to us with a final plan that we can approve, Erin.
No, they won't come back with a plan. This is going to
Okay,
go
this is
straight
the
to
final
execution.
guidance. All right.
Yeah, so I would recommend that the commission make a motion to issue an enforcement order to the property owner at 433 Northeast Street, following the guidance in Ward's email, and to include the additional conditions that the commission has discussed tonight, and that we receive an update within the next 30 days of the status of the work.
Okay. So Ward's email dated May 28th, 2025, providing guidance on remediation for this enforcement order. So looking for a
I just want to,
motion.
before we do that,
Okay.
so there's 44 people in the audience. Are any of them here for this?
Raise your hand if you're here for the enforcement order at 433 Northeast Street. All right, seeing none. Was that what you wanted to?
Oh, I have more, but let's get the
Okay.
motion.
All right, so we're looking for a motion to issue an enforcement order for 433 Northeast Street, and the orders per Ward Smith's email dated May 28th, 2025 to Aaron Jock. All of the conditions outlined in that email with the additional conditions discussed here tonight by the commission. Yes, Aaron.
Could I add just one more condition, which is that the commission wants to see this work completed and finished seed by August 30th, 2025?
Why that?
Yeah, can we do it earlier than that? Or do you
Why
think
that?
August?
Well, lining up a contractor, getting their plantings, it might take
Okay.
time. Also, I'd like to see them complete the work well within the growing season so that it's well established by the time we get a frost.
Okay, so said suggested motion with a date of work completed by August 31st.
Can we try for the July 31st? That's 2 months.
Fine. That's fine.
Rachel.
Yeah, so just writing down a little bit here, July is kind of a tough time to plant, so if there was a lot of wet weather coming in June, and for whatever reason things got pushed back, August would be the next planting season, mid-August to the end of August would be the next planting window, so there's a little bit of a heat zone in there.
So
Makes
maybe the
sense.
work, the excavation and seeding is completed by July 30th and the plantings completed before August 31st or something like that.
I think just the date of August 31st is.
Yeah, I let one single date and let's go
Yeah.
with August 31st to provide for the thermal windows and planting opportunities. And I think,
Yeah, just, what, August hydrologically is a dry period.
it can depend.
That is the lowest stream flows.
Okay, well, they'll have to water their plants. I mean, that's why we have a performance period.
All right, I'll make that motion.
My second.
Okay. All right, so Andre on the motion, Rachel on the second, and to clarify, we're using the August 31st date. Rachel,
Aye.
Alex,
I,
Jason,
Aye.
Andre,
Aye.
I'm an aye. Did I get you, Bruce?
No.
Yeah, but I,
Okay, now, Bruce.
okay, this is not a good time to get into this discussion, but at some point, I'd like to hear more about why does this stuff happen? Is it our failure to educate? Is it we don't have enough staff to really check up on all the stuff that they hear about? I mean, it's just remarkable that there needs to be enforcement orders. Someone started doing something and never came to us. Well, how can that be? So I don't want to take the time. It's a long discussion, but it's important that if it's a failure of our educative efforts, then we need to work on that.
Thank you, Bruce. And we'll have additional opportunities to contemplate that during this very meeting. So put a pin in it. Okay, moving on to our first hearing. Aaron, I'll let you bring in our project applicants. So this public meeting is now called to order. This hearing is being held as required by the provisions of Chapter 131, Section 40 of the General Laws of the Commonwealth and Act relative to the protection of the wetlands, as most recently amended in Article 3.31, Wetlands Protection under the Town of Amherst General Bylaws. This is an amended notice of intent for Pure Sky, requesting the installment of a battery energy storage system, trenching for auxiliary electrical service, and a culvert replacement. Proposed work includes work in bordering land subject to flooding, riverfront area bank, land under water bodies, and waterways and buffer zone at 191 West Pomeroy Lane, map 19D, lot 10. All right,
Michelle,
welcome, Tom. Yeah.
since we have so many people in the house, so to speak, do you want to just go over the hearing slide of sort of expectations for the?
Sure. I skipped that, didn't I? So each hearing has 20 minutes on the agenda. We're going to do 5 minutes from staff, 5 minutes from the applicant, 5 minutes for public comment or 2 minutes per person, and then 5 minutes for the Conservation Commissioner discussion. The commission requires all submitted materials and revised materials submitted by the Wednesday of the week prior. Clearly for everybody talking, state your name, your address, who you're representing, and if you have any preferred pronouns. Okay, and so do we need raised hands for who else is joining tonight, or do we have everybody on board?
We're good.
Okay.
Okay.
Hi, Tom. So Aaron, can you give us the 5-minute update or introduction to this, please?
Sure.
I have Scott Goldman here. Is that a project person? No, okay, public
that
comment.
I'm aware of. So I'll stop sharing. I like to see people's faces when I'm talking. We met out in the field yesterday and had a good site walk. I think the takeaways from the site walk as far as homework for Pure Sky we're waiting for design specifications for the culvert, which is along the access road, and details on the containment system, particularly product specifications on the PetroPlug mesh product that was described to us on the site walk, and including the required operation and maintenance for that product, how long the product lasts, when it requires replacement after installation, so that we can integrate the maintenance requirements into the stormwater operation and maintenance plan. And then the other question that was brought up from a commissioner was that we should have some sort of an emergency response procedure sort of built into the order of conditions with contact information for whomever the contractor is that's doing maintenance on the site, spill response, et cetera, in case of an emergency, that we have contact information available for those parties. And I think that's, oh, and natural heritage, we're still waiting on natural heritage approval on some of it and opinions on some of the path forward for some of the work.
All right, thank you, Erin. Tom, go ahead.
Great, thanks a lot. For the record, Tom Reedy, attorney with Bacon Wilson out of Amherst, here on behalf of Pure Sky, Fort River Solar. So the request is for three things. One is trenching, which I'll show you in a second. The second one is culvert replacement, as Erin noted, and I'll show you that. And then the third is for actually putting the battery energy storage system on the equipment pads, and then the containment for the secondary containment, I should say, for the battery energy storage system. So there's three pieces to the request. We know we've got some homework to do. Lawrence was able to have a conversation with Ms. Deanne. They're not inclined to issue an emergency certification to allow the culvert replacement. So we've just got to go through this amendment process. But we know, what Erin had said as far as what we need to provide. So we know we're going to be back in 2 weeks, hopefully for an approval then. So we're also hopeful to get any questions, comments, et cetera, this evening, so that ideally we're finished next time. So if I could share my screen just quickly, I'll go through the trenching, the culvert, and then the battery energy storage. So I will start with, let's see, I'll go to the. All right, so if you can see my screen, and I'm going to move my cursor around a little bit. This is just, I'm going to zoom in so you can see exactly what we're asking for, but this is the entrance. You've got West Pomeroy Lane at the bottom of the screen, and then this is the site access point. As I zoom in, you'll see that what the trenching request is for auxiliary power to the array. As I understand it, traditionally the solar panels would provide the energy, but when Eversource takes those panels offline for some distribution or transmission system work that they do, there would be no power to, for the fans, for the monitoring, et cetera. So what Pure Sky is asking for is to put an auxiliary line in. To do so, they're going to need to trench in the buffer zone. So there is a pole. I'm moving my mouse around right at the street, West Pomeroy. There's a pole. They're going to trench to this meter pedestal here, and then it's going to go underground, as you'll see the UGE, to this pole here, and then it pops up, and then it's overhead at that point, and then meanders its way overhead on the existing poles back to the arrays. So really the request is for trenching, as I'm showing right here. So from this pole to these pedestals, and then the pedestals to this pole, and then after that it's above ground. So that's the first request. The second request is for the culvert, and I'll switch over. So if you can see, it's a topographical image of, again, here's the West Pomeroy, comes in right here. There's the access I just showed you right in this area here. So we're not yet at those two maintenance buildings. In this area here, there is a culvert that warrants replacement. What we'll do, we've got a deadline to submit an updated plan or a plan to the Conservation Commission so that you can take a look at it. And so what we would do is submit that plan for the replacement of the culvert, either in kind, or maybe we'll use 3 different culverts so we don't have to increase the road height to get over there. So that is forthcoming, but this is the culvert that we're talking about replacing. And then the last piece is, and I'll show you the overall plan. And so this is for the battery energy storage. I'll zoom out a little bit. So this is the fire alarm plan. And so the pads have been approved. I'm going to show you where they are in relation to the resource areas. We have been through the fire department and have received their approval. There was a pretty onerous process with a peer reviewer. Code Red was the peer reviewer. There was several back and forths, and they ultimately approved the battery energy storage system. So again, West Pomeroy at the bottom of your screen. Here's that access way that we had just talked about. I'll zoom in, but just so you see, we've got the eastern array pad here, and then the western array pad here. I'll zoom in on the eastern array. You'll see that you've got a 50-foot and 100-foot wetland buffer, and then the 200-foot riverfront zone. And so we are outside where this is, right here. We are outside all of the resource areas. And so you'll be able to see that right here. This is where the batteries are going. And I have one that's a close up where you see the containment. Here's where the batteries are going. Again, outside of the riverfront, you see the riverfront line is here. And you see that the 100-foot buffer is here. So we're outside that resource area. Then if I go to the western array, or the western battery energy storage, same thing. You've got 50-foot, 100-foot, and then you've got 200-foot riverfront here. Again, we're outside of all of those resource areas. And then the last one that I'll show is the plan of the, let me just get it up, of the battery energy storage. And so this is just a close-up of the eastern array. So this is on the eastern array. This is the pad that I had just shown you outside a resource area. And here we are with the Centipede battery energy storage. Each, they're individual and compartmentalized. They each in themselves can store 98% of the material that they need to store. And then what we'll have outside of it, if there was a leak, and outside of that, we've got the secondary containment here. And then I can go over to the western array, but it's going to be the same thing. It's equipment pad. And then on top of that equipment pad, we'll have the batteries. And then around the equipment pad, we have the secondary containment. So that's high level. What we're asking for, the trenching, the culvert, which we'll have a better plan for, and then the battery energy storage. And you're muted, Michelle.
Thank you. If there's any public comment, please raise your hand now. Okay, I'm seeing none, so I'm going to go to commissioner discussion. Alex.
Yeah, this is directed at Tom. For the trenching, why can't the trench go down the middle of the road until the culvert and then somehow figure out a workaround the culvert rather than going off the road?
And Lawrence, correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's all in the road, save for those meter pedestals, which we'd have to go off the road because the meter pedestals are going to be off the road. But I think,
yeah, that's correct. The 2 points we go off the road are for the pedestal that needs to be off on the side, and when we go up the pole to do the overhead.
Yeah, so I've stood there with Lawrence and talked about it. I understand the culvert, understand the need to trench. It just occurred to me that lots of times people dig up the road to put in stuff. So that's my first question.
Yeah, I mean, one of the issues, Alex, is the depth that we go. There's already a culvert at the front that we're going to have to do some concrete encasement work because we can't get the depth. If we go over the second culvert as well, where we know we're already going to be challenged for height, the the wires need to be in sort of 2 foot underground. And we're not just going to have any room to be able to replace any of those pipes at the culvert without lifting the road up significantly in that area. So the whole impact into that buffer zone is made much worse if the further down the road we trench.
Okay, that's fine. I didn't just vote. I'm sorry, I said that's fine, but I understand the explanation is what I meant. I have another question, and it has to do with Pure Sky's letter that they wrote to us when we issued the original order. And if we need to, Aaron is prepared to pull it up. But it was a letter where Pure Sky wrote to us that they were removing batteries from the consideration of this project until the batteries were approved by the fire department. And that until we got notice from the fire department that their batteries were in fact approved for installation, this was essentially a battery-free project. So that said, that letter was included by reference to the order that we issued, and everybody on this commission who was present at the time, which includes me and Jason and Michelle, and I don't think Rachel was on then, or maybe Bruce, and I don't know whether Andre was on, but the people I named voted in favor of it. So I have a dim view of putting in instruments for the batteries, because without those instruments, they can still connect to the grid and sell electricity. They don't necessarily have to have the batteries in order to make money from the project. And the project could go along, it's my understanding, to be able to sell on the grid until they get approved by the fire department for batteries, at which point they get installed. So they do not need the equipment that's being asked for. And frankly, the letter that they wrote to us asking for that equipment is like the camel's nose coming out of the tent.
Understood. Thank you, Alex. I see your hand up, Lawrence. Are there any other commissioner comments on that or follow-ups or questions? All right, oh, Rachel, go ahead.
Yeah, I wonder, Tom, if it'd be possible to share the peer review conclusions. We heard some things on site that were a little confusing, the explanation about the containment and how it worked. And I know we're going to get some more detail, but if the peer review reviewed that in detail, it'd be great to see those two together.
Yeah, and I don't know, Aaron, if you've got that letter, I can find it and try to throw it up in the interim. But Lawrence, I believe we do have fire department approval.
We do have the permit from the fire department following an 8-month peer review process with multiple back and forths. The fire department was specifically all about meeting the codes and the fire safety and that side. They didn't opine on any containment because it's not their purview. Their purview was all about the safety of it. We have met the more stringent newer code 2023 NFPA 855, which is higher than was than the code was at the time that the batteries were purchased. The retrofitting and other things that we've done has lifted them up to meet their more stringent code. And we've also done some improvements in conjunction with the fire department to do with some remote annunciators, so that they have a remote point where they have visibility into both fire panels contained within the batteries without ever approaching the batteries themselves. So that's part of the permission that we've done with them.
Yeah, okay. So fire department has signed off, and we're going to try and keep this to our purview.
I'm sorry, but I think Aaron needs to bring up the document, because it says that there's no discussion about batteries until we have a letter from the fire department, and have they specifically approved the batteries that will be installed, or have they simply approved the equipment hookups or system that you're talking about?
Does anyone have an answer to that question?
I mean, I do. We have the permit, which was submitted on the basis of all the power and design documents. The review was done under power and design documents, and we provided we were issued the permit
Based on the battery specifications that you're using for
based
the
on the
project?
battery
Okay.
specifications. It's not a generic one for any batteries. It is specific to the power and centerpiece
Okay.
system.
Does that answer your question, Alex?
I want Aaron to bring up the letter that they sent us that was included by reference in the order.
I see you working on it, Aaron. Do you want me to take another question while you're looking, or are we looking at it right now?
Aaron, you're muted.
Sorry.
Do you need more time? I'm just
No, I
asking.
have it. I have it right
Okay.
here. It's the battery permit from the fire department is right here, and this is the letter from Pure Sky. Just
Where
toggling.
And
So
what, yeah,
maybe the place to begin is the letter that Pure Sky sent us, so we can refresh our memories on what they said, and then go to the fire department on what they actually approved. Because I'm a
Can-
little
can- can you
confused. I'm a little confused that it sounded like they've approved some technical pieces of equipment, but I didn't understand that they have passed off on the particular batteries that Pure Sky purchased and has had in storage. So could we begin with the beginning of, that would be the letter that was included by reference to the order.
Can you see my screen that I'm sharing right now?
I think he's referring to a different letter, Aaron. That's one's from Matthew Moy, and there was another one that was from me.
Oh, so this is the one that was referenced in the order of conditions.
Oh, okay. If that's the one that was referenced in the order of conditions, that's fine. My letter was basically just the amending my NOI request to remove the batteries until such time as the fire department had provided their permission.
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm talking about. And until that time, until the fire department passes off on the battery or batteries, you don't have a project that includes batteries.
But the batteries have been signed off by the fire department.
I think that we're not voting on this tonight, and this can be stacked on our list of things to confirm before we do. So I don't think that Aaron trying to find this letter and get it legible for us is going to happen tonight. So that is something that we can do easily offline, and we will do it. So I'm going to move on to other, but yes, noted that that's going to be addressed. I think Jason hasn't spoken yet, so I'm going to go to Jason.
No, my question was just, is this permit for the installation and operations of an energy storage system from the fire department that is in our package, is this not their sign off? And
This-
their approval?
This is their sign off on the proposal that's before us tonight.
Yeah, and
Okay. So that's just something that I guess Aaron or Michelle, you will have the fire chief confirm that this is approving the battery, this permit.
specifically the battery, which I think is what Alex is addressing. So the fire chief was on the site visit confirming their approval of the battery system. So we're into a very specific component of what the approval is relative to that original letter. I'm gonna let,
Just for clarification,
yeah,
that letter from that you have, that's not simply addressing the auxiliary energy hookup.
No, this permit that's in our package is the permit for the entire system. The batteries, the battery energy storage system, which is the batteries, the BESS.
Okay, I don't understand. I'll have to take a look at it again.
okay.
So that's going to be in our, that we'll go over that, and I don't need to spend any more time on it, but thank you for letting me explain my confusion.
Mm-hmm. Dave.
I think Rachel had her hand up first. I'm happy to.
Okay, Rachel.
Yeah, I just wanted to finish my question. I understand the fire department approved the battery, and that's fantastic. What I'm concerned about is the description of what happens in that apocalyptic scenario where, and the interaction of the chemicals with groundwater. We heard both infiltration and storage, so it's a little confusing what we heard on site. And just want to make sure that we, know that groundwater is going to be protected, the soil is going to be protected, and having that little bit more information would make me personally more comfortable going forward.
And we'll get you
Yeah.
a containment plan sorry, Michelle, we'll get you a containment plan and just a brief narrative to explain how it works
Great.
for next meeting.
Yeah, and I think Aaron already relayed that we'd be interested in looking at the specifications for the membrane fabric, in conjunction with a narrative. All right, Dave, going to you.
Yeah, just a couple of small things for Lawrence and Tom. Going back to the trenching plan, I noticed the actual service on that plan is going to the wrong building. We actually wanted to go to the left building, the left-hand building, not the right-hand building. And I think if you could adjust the plan for next time, that would be appreciated. I also just to think about, I had a little, talked to Aaron about this, the closeness of the meter pedestals to the road. I understand why they're there and their function, but that road is very narrow. I just want to make sure that, as this system generates energy over time, the town is going to be using that road for a number of things, as we have the right to do. So I just want to make sure there's no potential damage to them when a mower comes in, or I don't know, one of Pure Sky's vehicles, etc. So just something to think about. Going to the batteries, I know we'll talk more about this later, Michelle, but in fact, Jason's comment was correct. The permit that was issued by the fire department is for the system. It is not for a specific part of the system. As Lawrence indicated, the fire department went through an 8-month review with a third-party reviewer, some of the leading experts in the country, maybe in the world. I'm blanking on their name right now.
Code Red.
Code Red, thank you. I always forget the name of the company, but they are experts in this field, and they provided that third-party review. I also wanted to reference for the commission that one of the things we talked about many months ago was an emergency access in the event that the bridge on the Fort River was, for instance, flooded, and there was an emergency need to get to the panels in a hurry. How would that be achieved? We have worked with the fire department, gotten their approval, the town engineer, the building commissioner, and we've also worked with the management of the Mill Valley Apartments to create an emergency access to the north. And this would be paid for and constructed by Pure Sky. Aaron can put up a plan, if you would, Aaron, of that. It would be a grass pave access road that would be essentially something about that looks, is that only one part of it, Aaron? Oh, there we go. So this would be west of the eastern arrays, and it is all out of resource area. It would essentially be a road, a grass paved road that has been improved with grass pavers that will carry the weight of emergency vehicles, as well as the DPW vac truck for the cross-country sewer line that we have that goes under, if you will, underground on Hickory Ridge. So that is our emergency access, and Pure Sky will be constructing that in the next 4 to 6 weeks. So I wanted to reference that, and happy to have, if Lawrence or Tom wanted to say anything about that, please feel free.
Thanks, Dave. It sounds like a lot of the issues that we've been discussing for the last year or so have been resolved, and it's queuing up well. So that's good to hear. So Aaron gave you some questions. Rachel provided some questions. I think Alex's question might have been resolved with the further discussion. let's see. There was just one thing that we noticed on the site visit that I want to make sure is followed up on, which is that we noticed some grass, plastic landscape fabric. So that is not allowed per our orders of conditions. I think it was in there. So we'd like to see that removed and pulled up and replaced. Okay, is there anything else, commissioners, that we can give the applicants now so they can come back with more fully answered questions? Okay. Sounds good. So I think in that case, we are looking for a motion to continue the public hearing.
I'll move to continue the public hearing for DEP number 089-0728 to June 11th, 2025 at 7:20 p.m.
Second.
Andre on the motion, Bruce on the second, Rachel,
Aye.
Andre,
Aye.
Bruce,
Aye.
Alex,
Aye.
Jason,
Aye.
and I'm an aye. Okay, thank you, Tom,
Thanks a lot.
Lawrence, and Sean. We'll see you later. Okay, next up, we have notice of intent for GZA Geo Environmental Incorporated on behalf of Archipelago Investments LLC and Hampshire College for proposed mixed-use residential development at 0 West Bay Road, map 25B lots 52 and 0 West Street, map 25B lot 58. Proposed work includes construction of 3 mixed-use residential structures with associated parking, stormwater remediation, and landscaping, portions of which are located within the buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetland. DEP number 0890752. I'm just going to note that all commissioners received several public comments. They came in pretty late, so they're not included in the packet, but they were received by individual commissioners. Erin, I'm gonna let you. Okay, I see Steve is here. Okay, again,
Yeah.
so we're gonna have Erin give us a 5-minute update, then we're gonna hear from the applicant, then public comment, then commissioners. And this is going to be continued, I believe, but we will get to what we can. Go ahead, Erin.
Yeah, so after the initial site visit, we had asked to have Ward Smith go out and basically recertify the wetland boundary because there was some areas of saturation, leaf staining, etc., that appeared to extend beyond the wetland boundary in a specific location. And since that site visit, Ward has gone out and taken a look at that and added 2 additional flags to the wetland delineation to extend the wetland delineation slightly. We did conduct a site visit yesterday, I believe, to just have a look at where the flags were relocated. And I've requested that I have an opportunity to go out to the site with Ward, particularly because there's one location which is on the southwest end of the wetland delineation where the flagged wetland delineation just stops, and there's a straight line extending to the wetland or extending to the property boundary, and I'd like to clarify the what's going on there. Is it indeed a straight line, or did the wetland delineation just stop? We just need to basically have that firmly understood what's going on in that southwest corner. And then there was some public comment that came in at the last meeting regarding a potential vernal pool within the wetland. And so I'd like to walk within the wetland area to sort of verify, determine whether or not that vernal pool exists, and or just gather some more information with Ward about what potentially exists within 100 feet of the wetland boundary. So I'd like to have the opportunity to do that. I did speak with the applicant about that. And as I said before, I think our first step, because we didn't have an ANRAD in advance of this filing, our first step is to confirm the wetland boundary and make sure it's 100% accurate before we proceed with a review of the plan design, because changes in the wetland boundary could impact the plan design. So those are my comments, and I'll yield the rest of my time if I have more.
Thanks, Erin. Are there any comments for the applicants or updates?
Yes, if I could, I'd like to, I was unable to join last meeting. I'd like to present some of the stuff that I sent over in the packet in the last week or so to the board, if I could, to commission.
Sure, this is the new material.
Correct.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Thanks. Try to share here. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
No,
No.
Commissioners, raise your hand if you can see it. Okay. Alex, I'm not sure what's going on with you, but we can all see it. So it might be something with your screen settings.
it simply says Kyle has started screen sharing. Double click to enter full screen mode. Sorry, I'll do that. Press escape or double click to exit full screen mode. I'd like to see them, but I'll proceed. I'm not able to see them.
Kyle, are these pictures and materials in our packet? Were they
Yes,
provided?
but I wanted to do a presentation. Let me try to stop and I'll try it again. Let's try it
Oh,
again.
okay, but please proceed.
Let's try this.
I was just going to suggest that Alex might look at the packet while you're discussing it. All right,
Okay.
Alex, can you see it now?
No,
Okay, well, let's just keep going. We're looking
Okay.
at a picture of the road, Alex, and the dirt
Yep.
parking lot in Goulds.
okay.
An intersection just showing where there's a white truck, parked adjacent to the wetlands, the flag. So there's three things with this site. Again, I'm sorry I couldn't make the last meeting. There was a death in the family, so I just wanted to kind of set the table, as it were, for why we're proposing what we're proposing. And there's three main categories. One is the site is zoned business village center, which is the second densest zone in Amherst. Two is the site has wetlands, and three, the site is contaminated with lead arsenic. These are historical images that I included in the packet that show starting in 1952 going through 2016, and they show the site, and they show the very long history of the site being agricultural and being in use. And you can see from the aerial in 1952 and 1960, there's no wetlands of note in the picture. It's mostly apple orchards. You'll see the same in 62 and 72, even though 72 doesn't quite track. So you can see active agricultural and limited to no wetlands. See the same thing in 75. And then what you see on these two slides is the first construction of Hampshire Village and the tennis courts, and then the pool and the road. And what you'll start to also see is some improvements on Bay Road and the beginnings of a road that leads to where Applewood is subsequently built, which shows up in 97 and 2008. And you can see how the wetlands start to expand after the creation of Applewood. See that in 2012 and 2016, as the site currently sits fully built out with Hampshire College, Eric Carle, Yiddish Book, Atkins, Applewood, Upper Orchard, and Hampshire Village. So the first part is this it's zoned business village center. The town has planned a village center in this location for decades. The land is owned by Hampshire College, and the revenue from the sale of the land is very important to the college. And there's a definition of the BVC, which is a district to provide areas within the village centers of Amherst that will offer a mix of uses, including retail, commercial, office, and housing of moderate to high density. This is from 23 years ago. So this was the workbook of design options for Atkins Corner in 2002. This was a very long process that started back in the 70s as Atkins Corner was designated as a future village center. And there have been reports through the 90s and into 2000 that went into this plan talking about how the town could work to make these sites into a village center. The other fact is that this site has wetlands. The site has a 100-year agricultural history, Atkins since 1887. Aerial photos show little to no wetlands in the past. And the growth of the wetlands came after the development of Hampshire Village, Upper Orchard, and Applewood. And there's currently, as we'll see, a concrete pipe that drains Applewood parking lots, Bay Road and Rambling, and goes directly to the wetland south and west of the site. And what you'll also notice is the buffer that we're talking about is down gradient from the wetland. It's a unique condition. We're not working up gradient from the wetland and having things down fall into it. We have a wetland that is water is provided via a concrete pipe, and that is flowing out on to our site. So you'll see the pictures of Applewood also included in the packet, and the site planning and drainage, and showing that the parking lots of Applewood drain, get picked up, run along Bay Road, and go across Rambling in an existing concrete pipe. That shows on the current GIS map. This is oriented with north being up. That show the same thing. And it also shows that pipe picking up 2 drains on Bay Road. So you'll see all of the parking lots of Applewood being caught, a portion of Bay Road and a portion of Rambling being caught and piped, and that pipe being daylit, again, just south and west of our site, and north of and up gradient from the pool and the adjacent tennis courts. So these 2 in the red circles, you see the 2 drains on Bay Road that go into that pipe. And then on Rambling, you'll see 2 drains that also go into the pipe. Our site is to the right here. You can see the little dog houses for the Berkshire Gas infrastructure behind the stop ahead sign. So all that road gets picked up, dropped in drains, put underground, and it comes out here. So this is shown on the utility map. This is, again, south and west of our site. And this is how the runoff from Bay Road, Applewood parking lots, and Rambling gets put into the wetland. So the existing site also is contaminated with lead arsenic. Lead arsenic's in the wetland. Lead arsenic is in the buffer. Lead arsenic is...
Kyle, that's the 5-minute timer. Are you able to wrap up in a minute?
Yes, lead arsenic's everywhere. There's orchards in the past, and the redevelopment requires remediation of the soil. Any contaminated soil that's not removed needs to be fenced if this is to be redeveloped as a residential component. Very quickly, this is also what we submitted showing where we took the test and found the lead arsenic. These are 5 maps that just show our future potential for this site. We could leave all the lead arsenic and not do anything on the site, and this is showing 100% of the site saying contaminated with lead arsenic. If we went to the 100-foot buffer, we'd be removing approximately 55% of the contaminated site and leaving the rest. If we went to the 50-foot buffer, we'd be removing 65% of the lead contaminated soil. And if we can remove all of the soil right up to the edge of the wetland, we'd be removing approximately 75% of the existing lead contaminated soil. So what we showed and what we are showing going into that buffer is an attempt to balance the removal of contaminated soil in the buffer, which we think is an optimal solution, a connection of along Lannon all the way to Rambling, and the creation of the 140 housing units, which we think is the best case scenario for what we've proposed. So that's what I have to present tonight.
Thank you, Kyle. All right, so next up is our public comment. So if you have a comment on this that maybe was not relayed to us via email and the portal, which we thank you for, please raise your hand now. I have Maria. Go ahead, Maria. 2 minutes. Erin, I don't have control. Okay, there we go.
Yeah, Michelle, I'm going to make you, because
Yep.
I've got to run the timer.
We good?
Yeah, we're good. Please
Okay.
go ahead.
Hi, Maria Kapicki, 65 Country Corners Road. Kyle's history lesson notwithstanding, there is a wetland on this site. There's a wetland on a lot of this site. So my comments that I sent to you prior to your last meeting stand wholeheartedly. The plans that are proposed would decimate the boundary. I mean, that's just facts. And I appreciated the Conservation Commission's attention to that at the previous meeting. I appreciate you going back out there and really assessing that and assessing other stuff. I'm also, in addition to being adamantly opposed to the variance that would destroy this wetland, I'm concerned about this fencing business. That, everybody that lives in this whole area, yeah, sure, there were orchards here. I mean, I'm sure there's lead arsenic in a lot of the area. Putting up a fence along the entire border of the wetland, what's that going to do to wildlife? What's that going to do to the natural environment? This is a bad site for the type of development that is being proposed. I'm sorry, that's the fact of the matter. So please uphold our wetlands bylaw. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. I have Jennifer. Go ahead, Jennifer.
Good evening, everyone. Yes, thank you for the opportunity. I'm Jennifer Hickson, 12 Autumn Lane, and a direct abutter. Again, as last meeting, I'd just like to reiterate this project is very awkward and too big for this lot. It assaults the wetlands and decimates them and the wildlife to go with it that I know you all enjoy in your properties. The chain link fence, again, I don't know how a chain link fence stops anything, but water seeping through, contaminants seeping through, and the wildlife being, well, they'll be gone anyway. The parking plan will only attack the rest of our streets and roads with cars that'll be parked, because a car a unit is not a realistic goal for parking. So I also hope that the committee will uphold our wetlands and consider a project that is more reasonable for the space that is here at the end of our street. And I thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Jennifer. I have Carol. Carol, if you unmute your.
Yes,
allowed
I'm
to talk, yeah.
Carol McNary. I live at 115 Spencer Drive, Applewood. And I agree with what Maria said, that we're given this history of how the wetlands evolved. And if there's one thing we know about nature and studying it in an ecological way, is that it's dynamic, and that those wetlands are there they serve a purpose. And I think, you're well aware of the importance of preserving them, because they do serve a purpose. And putting a few trees around it, the way that was described last time, or a fence, is not going to fix the damage done to them. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. I have Ed. Go ahead, Ed.
Hi, it's Ed Wingenbach, 15 Middle Street, Amherst, Massachusetts. I am here. I'm the president of Hampshire College, and so I'm here for two reasons. One is during the last meeting, after the public comment period, there were several questions about the project and Hampshire's involvement, and even some suggestions about reciting it onto the campus. And so I just wanted to make sure that people know that I'm here in case there are questions about those sorts of things. And to be clear that this is a project where we are partnering with Archipelago, but we are to sell the property, but we're not developing it with them. This is not a Hampshire College project itself. Secondly, I think it's really important to recognize that this area is one of the only places in Amherst that is zoned for dense development. It's one of the only places in this area where we can start to address even minimally the housing crisis that we have in Amherst, which all of you understand. Certainly my experience and the experience of my colleagues in the 5 colleges is that it is almost impossible to hire people who can live in Amherst. I have not been able to hire a person who could buy a home in Amherst in several years. And we need to start giving places for people to live. This would be a great place for people at Hampshire to live. They're very eager for that opportunity. And if we can't develop here in a place that's zoned for it, in a place that is perfectly situated for people to live and shop and work, and because the surrounding developments haven't controlled their wastewater and have created a contaminated wetlands, I'm not sure how we're ever going to start developing. And that means we're going to be pushing the environmental challenges of providing the housing that our employees and other employees need in order to live a decent life close to the places where they work and to contribute to this community, we push. Thank you.
That's your time, Ed. Thank you. Okay, next I have Sherry Wilson.
Thank you. I'm Sherry Wilson. I live at 4 McIntosh Drive, which is around the corner from Atkins and across the street from Hampshire. I am not opposed to developing this site, but I am opposed to this current proposal. I was very encouraged by the comments by Conservation Commission members at the last hearing concerning the wetlands. However, the wetlands have been created over time. They now exist. And with our recent wet springs, they are only going to get wetter. They are not going to go away. And I think that they make it rather difficult to develop a project of this size on this site. And I hope that the Conservation Commission will abide by the laws that have been established about wetlands and reject this current proposal. If Archipelago would like to come back with a smaller proposal that does not infringe on the wetlands, that would be fine. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Sherry. Margaret.
Yeah, my name is Meg Bouvier. I'm at 30 Autumn Lane, and I agree with what Sherry just said. We're not necessarily opposed to building on this site. It's just the size of it and the fact that it impinges on the wetland. And agree with a lot of the previous comments that regardless of how the wetland came into existence, it's here now. It supports a lot of wildlife, and we have to recognize that. And we would like
Oh, that's not yours. Sorry.
Okay. I'm almost done. We'd like the building plan to just, respect the wetland boundaries and to be done in a sensible way.
Thank you, Meg. Next I have Paul.
Hi, I'm Paul Jurdis. I'm at 22 McIntosh Drive in Upper Orchard 2, abutting this proposed site. I think we can certainly address the housing needs of the Amherst community without necessarily stuffing as many residential units as feasible into this facility while skirting the bylaws and encroaching on a fragile natural habitat. So, I'm appealing to the commission to uphold and support the values of our community and insist that Archipelago adhere to the conservation bylaws, build to the proper scale, and protect our natural resources. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Christine.
Yes, this is Christine Conlon at 33 Autumn Lane. And the 2 points that I would like to address is that the size of this and also the way it doesn't fit in with our community, I think is something that should be looked at. Our buildings are all low. This is going to be 3 stories at least. I think that it's too large. And my second point is that I would certainly hate to see us lose the wildlife that comes through here. We have bear, we've got deer, red fox, and it would be a real shame to see that lost because we have to build 3 huge buildings that are not going to fit in with this community. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. So that is the end of public comment. Commissioners, we do have Kyle here, which is different than last time, and some new information he presented. Is there anything you would like to ask or discuss while we have a fuller representation from our applicants? Bruce.
Kyle, can you give your last name and your address?
on the screen?
Kyle Wilson
Wilson.
and, yep, 37 South Pleasant Street, downtown Amherst,
With Archipelago, yes.
Yeah.
with Archipelago. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Alex,
Yeah. Thank you for joining us, Kyle. It was me who talked about the project on Hampshire property. And is it true that that property was donated to Hampshire College by an individual?
The 2 parcels we're talking about today,
Yeah.
I don't know that.
Alex, is that relevant to any of the wetlands or development plans?
Yeah, it is. Because I have reason to believe that it was donated for this purpose, and I didn't know how a donation could be restricted like that. But anyways, with all due respect, you have a lot of property on your campus, and I'll just say it again, what I said last time. This is an extremely controversial project, and I have a dim view of what's being asked in terms of the waivers having to do with wetlands and wetland boundaries. And Hampshire College will benefit when if the project gets permitted, because I understand and you've confirmed that the land will be, you'll be paid for the land. So that's the college has, we all know, financial problems. And if you were to go under, I suspect your campus would be sold. I won't venture to say who might be interested in buying it, but presumably it would be available for housing. So
Alex, just to interrupt you, Kyle, you represent Archipelago, so Kyle isn't,
sorry.
yeah,
I'm sorry.
that's okay, just clearing that up.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I just happened to be looking at the screen because he talked last, and it was my mistake. In any event, I don't see in thinking about the controversial nature of this project in the neighborhood and trying to be a good neighbor. If Archipelago was to buy the land from you after its project was approved, you have a big campus. And presumably you could pick this project up and point to a piece of property on your campus that wouldn't be as controversial, and you could meet your financial needs in the sale of the same size property. And I asked last time that be considered. It wasn't perhaps Archipelago's job to come to you, but you're here now. And so I would ask to, if you couldn't reconsider the location and come to us with a project that doesn't have all the requests for wetland waivers, that would be much easier for us, because frankly, it's an affront. Your waivers are an affront to our regulations.
Okay, thank you, Jason.
Yeah, Kyle, you mentioned that any contaminated soil that is not removed as part of the redevelopment of this project or any future project would need to be fenced off. Can you just elaborate on that? Why would that soil need to be fenced off after redevelopment and not currently needing to be fenced off?
Sure. And it seems like through some of the public comment that's not understood well. So I should have done a better job explaining that. So as the site currently stands, there's lead arsenic everywhere, including in the wetland, in the soil from its history as an apple orchard. If the site is to be redeveloped, and the redevelopment includes housing, then there are regulations that dictate how clean the site has to be clean. And if there's lead arsenic in the soil and there's housing proposed or young children, then the soil has to be removed. If it can't be removed, it needs to be, a fence needs to be built so that children can't get into the non-removed soil and eat the dirt. So if you look at the 2002 study that I sent and is in the packet. There's aerial shots of when Eric Carle was built. When Eric Carle was built, they went through this exact same situation, and you'll see a picture of 12 inches of soil removed from that site. So before they built the Eric Carle Museum, they had to do the same thing. Remove any soil on their site to allow for redevelopment. So if it was us redeveloping this project, if it's someone else redeveloping this project in the future, they will need to deal with the lead arsenic, and there will need to be a fence built somewhere between the wetland and the new development. We're obviously not proposing to go into the wetland in any way, shape, or form. The only reason we're proposing to go into the buffer as much as we are is because the town built a road hammerhead to go into that. The town sidewalk in Lannon Way is currently as close as we would be proposing to be, and because someone has to remove all the lead arsenic soil at some point. And so we have to pick with the Conservation Commission at some point in some development, there's going to have to be a decision made as to where do we stop removing the lead arsenic soil? Do we want it to be at the 100-foot buffer and just leave all the soil in the 100-foot buffer with lead arsenic and keep it there? Do we want to put it on the 50-foot buffer and keep all the soil behind the 50-foot buffer, lead arsenic, and keep it there? Or do we want to remove more of that soil and get that? So that's the only reason that this project has proposed its impact on the buffer as it is because the buffer is currently fully contaminated with lead arsenic soil.
Thank you. Are you good, Jason?
Was this the case when Applewood was built and McIntosh Way was all of that? It appeared that all of that was Apple Orchards too. Was all of that soil contaminated? And you may not know this, but was all of that
I don't have the answer, and I
arsenic?
don't believe that the same regulations were in place at the time of development of those projects.
So in theory,
I believe it was
that,
at the case when Eric Carle was done.
So in theory, all of that area is still potentially contaminated with lead arsenic.
There were a lot of orchards in South Amherst, and the pesticides that were used in orchards are apparent on the site that we're talking about.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Jason. Dave?
Yeah, thanks, Michelle. Two quick comments. One, and I don't have all the details, but I do agree with Kyle that much of South Amherst was orchards, for decades. And I do know that some of the regulations did change over the last 2 decades. I know that when the town worked with the state on the double roundabout, some of you may recall very large piles of soil that were stored as part of that project. All of that was contaminated soil with lead arsenic, and that project was required to move it off-site. Applewood and some of the other developments may have predated some of those regulations regarding lead and arsenic contaminations, and I don't know the details on those. But a lot of that area does have those contaminants. The other thing I do want to just respectfully recommend that the commission stay focused on your purview, the wetlands, the delineation, the bylaw, the waivers, issues of land ownership, land donations, whether this project should go on the Hampshire College campus. Frankly, I think those are beyond the commission's purview, and the commission should focus on your jurisdictional areas, as you do in all these regulatory matters. So those are my 2 quick comments. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Any other commissioner questions or comments? Well, so I understand that we're continuing tonight and that Aaron has requested some further investigations of the wetlands with Ward. There were some questions that we had, Kyle, previously about mitigation, and what we heard was that you were suggesting pollinator plantings on site. I'm not asking for you to address that tonight necessarily, but as we continue this conversation, if you still want us to even consider the encroachment into the 50-foot, we would be talking about a much bigger mitigation scenario there. So that's just something I want to mention now.
Understood.
Is there anything else from commissioners before we leave tonight? Okay,
Yeah, I have,
Yeah, Alex.
with all due respect for Dave, I think the questions I asked were pertinent. And last time we had this meeting, I did mention, as Michelle just reiterated, that the mitigation suggested of planting can't mitigate the action, that mitigate the impacts, and that mitigation begins with avoidance. The next step is minimization. And I suggested that you consider reducing the project, including reducing the square footage of the project, so that you in fact have what I would consider to be mitigation. Plantings don't do it. So I just wanted to reiterate that. Thank you very much.
Yep, thank you, Alex. And I guess I'll expand upon what I said. True. So mitigation starts with avoidance, then minimization. I think for us contemplating this project, having scenarios which addresses those three scenarios would be really helpful in moving forward with this, because I think we're, looking at a existing wetland boundary that's possibly going to get bigger. So just trying to move this forward for us to contemplate it, maybe come back with some thoughts on that. Okay, any last questions or comments from commissioners? And if not, we're looking for a motion to continue.
I move to continue the public hearing for DEP number 089-0752 to June 11th, 2025 at 7:25 p.m.
A second.
Bruce on the motion, Rachel on the second. Rachel?
Aye.
Bruce?
Aye.
Jason?
Aye.
Andre?
Aye.
Alex?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. Did I get everyone? Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you next time. Okay. Next up, we have a notice of intent for R. Levesque Associates Incorporated on behalf of Lawrence Hanson for the reconstruction of a two-family dwelling at 72 Curtis Place. Structures, stormwater, and parking are proposed to be located within buffer zones to bordering vegetated wetlands. Okay, are we getting updates, or are we just moving it to a continuation tonight?
They've requested a continuation to continue addressing the commission's comments.
Okay. So we're just moving straight to continuation.
I move that we continue this project, this hearing, excuse me, hearing for DEP number 089-0753 to June 11, 2025 at 7:30.
Second.
Alex on the motion, Bruce on the second. Rachel?
Aye.
Bruce?
Aye.
Jason?
Aye.
Andre?
Aye.
Alex?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. Okay, next up, notice of intent for this engineer on behalf of the town of Amherst for the proposed daylighting of the Kellogg Brook, which will include restoration of bank bordering vegetated wetland, land, and water. Proposed work also includes an accessible pedestrian path and pedestrian bridge that will accommodate a lawnmower at 31 Southeast Street, map 15A, lot 20. I see you bringing Bucky and Erin. So fortunately, we spent our upfront time on this last time. So I think we're pretty queued up to issue this order of conditions tonight.
There wasn't any comments received from the Wayfinders group. We did share and follow up with them several times to see if they had any comments about the proposed stream daylighting project, but they were aware that this project was coming, and we did share it with them, and there was no comments received. So I
Great,
think that was
thank
the
you.
one thing we were holding on.
Yep, thanks for following up. Hi, Bucky. Okay, is there anything you want to add, Bucky, or should we?
I have nothing to add this evening. Thank you.
Okay, great. So Erin, Bruce, go ahead.
So there was a comment sent by an abutter, and if they're in the audience, we should take their
Okay.
comment.
Thanks, Bruce. I might have missed that. Please raise your hand if you're here for the Town of Amherst daylighting of Kellogg Brook and want to add a comment. Okay, seeing none. Are there any questions, comments from commissioners? Okay, if not, we're looking to. Oh, thank you, Aaron.
All right. I move, you want me to make a motion?
Yes,
Yeah.
please.
Move to close the public hearing and approve an order of conditions for DEP number 089-0754 pursuant to Wetlands Protection Town of Amherst General Bylaw Article 3.1 and regulations and the Wetland Protection Act with the noted special conditions as discussed.
I second that.
Andre on the motion. I got Jason on the second. Andre,
Aye.
Bruce,
Aye.
Jason,
Aye.
Alex,
Aye.
Rachel,
Aye.
and I'm an aye. Okay. Thank
Before-
you. Thank you, Bucky. Yeah.
Before Bucky goes, can I get a 1-minute answer to a conceptual question?
Sure, Bruce, go ahead.
That
If
I
that's
agree
okay with
with.
Bucky.
Part of your comment or your analysis back to the landowners who live next door, you were talking about the 500-year storm. And
Yeah.
you also talked about the 100-year storm. When you look at what's been happening and you're seeing the weather people doing an analysis, are those storms becoming the 50 and 250, the 25 and 100? I mean, what is the trend line here?
The trend line is nothing that anybody here wants to hear. The storms are getting bigger when they come through. It is a terrible reality that we have inflicted upon ourselves. And it doesn't bode well for anything where water has to move downhill. That is universal. The vast majority of every bit of infrastructure we've built in the last 200 years is already too small, and it's getting smaller every year. That's
all I wanted to know. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Bucky. Bruce.
Sorry to be the downer.
No, we know. I'm just reconfirming what we already know.
Yeah,
so I just want to hear about that directly from someone who's an expert.
Okay, noted. Well noted. All right, so okay, we voted, we're good, and I guess we can say thank you, good night to Bucky.
Thanks, Bucky.
Hey, Bucky.
All right. Good night. Thank you, and I'll see you again, I'm sure.
Thank you.
Okay, last up for our hearings is a request for determination of applicability. Okay, I'm opening this one. This hearing is being held as required by the provisions of Chapter 131, Section 40 of the General Laws of the Commonwealth and Act relative to the protection of the wetlands is most recently amended in Article 3.31, Wetlands Protection under the Town of Amherst General Bylaws. This is a request for determination of applicability for Cold Springs Environmental on behalf of Rebecca Woodland and Michael Hutton for the repair of an existing septic system and associated site work within buffer zone to bordering vegetative wetland at 67 Hulst Road, map 30B, lot 79. Okay, I see someone with a hand up. Aaron, I'll just rely on you, I think, to
Yeah, I attempted
recognize.
to bring him in already. I don't know what's going on. It seems like it's taking a long time. Okay, here he comes.
Okay, so just to revisit, we're going to do a 5-minute presentation from Aaron. Then we'll hear from the applicant if you wish to speak. 5 minutes for public comment, and then 5 minutes from commissioners. So welcome, Alan, and Aaron, please go ahead.
Yeah, I attended a site visit yesterday with Alan and the homeowner. I think this is an extremely straightforward project. I've drafted some special conditions to attach to a determination, and I don't have any concerns about the work as proposed, provided that the commission approve the project with the noted conditions.
Thanks, Aaron. Alan, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Oh, sorry, we need your last name for the record. We just need your last name and address, please.
Yeah,
Or your-
Alan Weiss, Cold Spring Environmental. I'll just make one correction. When you announced me, it's Cold Spring Environmental for the record. and we're in Belchertown, Massachusetts.
Thank you.
I did attempt to try to place this more to the center of the property, but we did not find soils that wanted to cooperate with Title V requirements. And therefore we had to fit it to the west, as you see, of the driveway line. That was the only thing, in case somebody was concerned why we didn't put it in the more broad area to the central and eastern part of the property.
Understood. Thank you. Any public comment for this one? Please raise your hand now. Okay, Commissioner, questions, comments? Andre?
Yeah, just a quick, simple question. I drove by there earlier today, and I couldn't seem to spot the wetland area that's there. Could you tell me where it is?
Sure, it's right off the other side of Hulst Road. It's if you go in through the poison ivy and into
Yep, got it.
down the slope there from the road, it's pretty much uniform along much of that part, the north side of Hulst Road. We've
Right.
done this dance before on other septics on the south side of Hulst Road, and it just is what it is.
On the north side.
The septic work we've done is on the south side. The wetland continues to the east along the north side of Hulst Road.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks, Andre. All right, if there's no other questions or comments, we're looking for a motion to close this public hearing and issue a positive determination. And Aaron, do you mind bringing up the motion? Thank you.
I move to close the public hearing and issue a positive determination of applicability. Am I on mute? No.
Can I, excuse me?
Yep.
Are we not looking for a negative determination here?
The positive determination has to be made under our local bylaw, the
Or
negative.
your local, okay,
Yeah.
fine. Under
Yep.
state code, it's negative. Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Should I start over?
I'm sorry.
You're good. Just keep going if you know where you were.
Positive determination of applicability, checking box 5, confirming jurisdiction pursuant to Wetlands Protection Town of Amherst General Bylaw, Article 3.31, and regulations, and a negative determination of applicability, checking box 3 under the Wetlands Protection Act with special conditions as drafted and discussed. Sorry for exposing the top of my head as I read.
Second.
Alex on the motion, Andre on the second, Rachel,
Aye.
Bruce,
Aye.
Alex,
Aye.
Andre,
Aye.
Jason,
Aye.
I'm an aye. All right, thank you for hanging on with us, Ellen.
Thank you. Good night.
Night. Okay, so another compliance issue. I told you we'd be coming back to this one as an issue. So 11 Poets Corner, I actually went back and listened to this hearing for an RDA in 2023, and I saw Jason and Andre. I think Alex was there and Bruce was there, so maybe you can remember it. So it was a new house development, and there was an issue with driveway placement and an easement, so they were sort of crunched. So what the issue was that we needed to approve them. Was it working in the 100-foot buffer because they couldn't really get their driveway in otherwise due to an existing easement. So what the issue is with the limit of work that we approved did not include, well, anything outside of that. And Aaron got some phone calls from some people who were observing that there was a lot of activity going on, and it appears that there was some excavation and grubbing far outside the limit of work that we contemplated as part of that RDA. So basically we never discussed or approved this as part of the RDA, and there seems to be some misunderstanding from the homeowners about what was allowed under that RDA. Aaron, do you want to add anything? You were on site, and thank you for doing the visit, but provide some more details.
Yeah, so the red line kind of shows the limit of work. And then what I note on my markup is that there was clearing and grubbing right up to this boundary, including within the 50-foot wetland area, which the 50-foot is right here. There is an existing split rail fence that runs along this boundary. So the homeowner basically expressed that so two things happened. They removed the erosion control boundary, and that there was a condition in the permit that required that the site be stable before the erosion controls are removed, and that I do a final inspection before it's removed. So that was done. And then also the work extended beyond the approved limit of work line, and the intention of the landowner is to extend their lawn into this area that's noted in yellow. I let the applicant know that they violated their determination by not following the conditions, and that the clearing exceeded the limit of work line that was approved by the commission, and that work shouldn't have happened without advanced notice and permission. And they were under the impression, I guess, that they were allowed to proceed with the installation of the lawn. So I think there was some maybe lack of understanding of the requirements within the permit approval. So I guess Michelle and I talked about in advance of the meeting tonight how to resolve this, and I think there's multiple routes that could be taken. My recommendation to the commission is, depending on what direction you want to go, you could require them to return back to their previous limit of work and replant the area that they didn't have permission to enter, or allow them to continue to use this existing limit of work and plant it as grass. I was thinking maybe some middle ground being doing some native plantings within that 50-foot no touch zone with some bounding, and having that area be maintained in perpetuity as a mitigation for the damage that's been done, knowing that previously we've allowed some encroachments onto the some encroachments within the 50-foot for certain projects, and so here they're between 50 and 100. So that is my suggestion, that maybe we require some plantings in this area and ask them to restore the area of the 50-foot. But and I do think we should issue a notice of non-compliance that puts the commission's request in writing as to how the commission wants this to be resolved.
Yeah. So some of you may remember that dirt pile that you took it down, but there was a
sorry.
dirt pile that was the focus of this original RDA a focus. So yeah, so after, and maybe we could see some pictures if that's
sorry,
readily available. I think after looking at the pictures and talking to Erin, my recommendation is to issue an order of non-compliance and suggest revegetating that 50-foot with some permanent demarcation so that there's no further encroachment, with some suggested planting. So it's upland, basically. It's not wet necessarily there, but maybe some shrub plantings. Yeah, do you mind just like taking your marker and showing where the 50-foot within that cleared area is? Maybe everybody
Yeah, right
already
here.
knows. And I mean, so right now this is bare dirt right up to the property line.
Yeah, and I was gonna grab the photos to show you guys as well, so you can see what the site looks like.
Okay, while we're waiting, Andre, go ahead.
Thank you. Well, I'm in agreement with what you're saying. I think a violation like this needs to be followed up with a non-compliance order or a statement of non-compliance, and they need to be returning it back to what it was before.
So the whole thing, or we're
Mm.
talking about the 50-foot?
50-foot buffer.
Okay, thanks, Alex. I mean, Andre. Alex, go ahead. Oh, you're muted, Alex.
Aaron, or anybody who's familiar with it, did this occur because we were not clear in what we wrote? And if we were unclear, I just want to know, were we unclear?
I don't
Well-
think that it was unclear at all. I think the plan was clear where the limit of work was. I think the conditions were very clear. And I think it was a matter of the landowner not following the approved plan and not following the approved permit.
Yeah, so similar to maybe some previous problem sites we've had, the plan we were given is what we produced our orders on. And so they did not give us any plans to clear or develop or do anything outside that small limit of work that only involved the driveway. So we were never asked to consider this nor put conditions around this work. So it's just they kind of, like, I guess, took liberties into removing the vegetation at this point.
Thank you. That's all I need.
Yeah, I mean, in the future, I think this is a good maybe point where we can be very clear and maybe preemptive, where we're saying this is what we're approving and we, don't expect to see anything, and especially when it comes to lawns, which really seems to be the one that gets us all in trouble. Jason, go ahead.
Yeah, is this, Aaron, you mentioned the landowner, but is this the landowner not necessarily understanding plans, or is this the contractor not understanding plans? Because that's a big difference, right? Like, I would expect that landowners aren't necessarily capable of reading plan, or know how
Yeah.
to read plans and identify those things in the field. Whereas contractors, I fully expect, are able to read plans and identify areas in the field, especially when a lot is flagged and surveyed before they start
Yeah.
doing the excavation.
So this is a landowner who is running their own project. They designed it. They have been managing it. It's not like it's a developer who's developing the lot. It's actually the landowner.
Okay.
And the landowner did tell me that they thought they had permission from the approval to do the entire area of the lawn as grass. And frankly, the area was really like sort of just like shrubby perennial kind of growth before it was great. Well, it wasn't even really graded. It was like scraped and grubbed to some degree. The trees weren't removed. There wasn't any tree growth in that area. It was low growing pollinator kind of shrubby vegetation growing. So they were under the impression that they could reestablish that all as lawn. And I think that that's where the confusion came through. They thought, oh, this limit of work is only for construction. It doesn't count for our lawn. And I'm like, no, it counts for everything. And I think that that's where the confusion came in.
And perhaps in the future, we don't call it a limit of work, but rather a limit of disturbance.
Yeah, I mean, I think Michelle had made one suggestion. What was the suggestion you had made in our standard boilerplates, Michelle? To add a comment about the limit of work includes lawn area, and being a little more clear that, particularly like with single family house development, that the limit of work, it doesn't mean people can expand their lawn beyond that limit of work. That's the area that's approved to be their lawn.
Yeah, I think that was a good idea I had. I don't remember it, but let's do that. I think just using the language of lawn and limited work in conjunction, and being really explicit about that, because it's probably just not obvious to landowners that construction and impervious surface is the only kinds of limited work. So note to all of us to do some better outreach and education on that.
The commission 5 years from now will appreciate that we're being clear.
Yeah, or they won't notice because they'll have no problems with it. That's the best case scenario. Okay, so back to proceeding with this one. I think people understand what happened, what the issue is. And so how are we going to address it, and what are we asking for are the questions we need to get to. So Andre, you were in support of the notice of non-compliance and providing some orders of remediation and restoration with a 50-foot. Bruce?
I agree with Andre.
Okay, anybody else? Rachel? Is that an agreement hand? Okay. So some other things that Aaron and I discussed was sort of giving them a list of potential plans to choose from. So I would like to guide that in a way that's like longer lived, easy growing shrubs, so that it doesn't become a place that requires additional disturbance and plantings over time. And then having some demarcation and leaving that up with some discretion with the landowner so they can do it to their aesthetic sensibilities. But is there any guidance we'd like to give about that 50-foot demarcation? So it's going to be their lawn, then this 50-foot sort of sliver, and then I think there's a split rail fence that would be on their property line. But does anyone have any recommendations or opinions about that? I think that not having whatever we used on Trillium, something that's visible and would provide a good mower line is all I would like to see. Andre?
I was going to suggest some medium-sized stones, but I don't care. It doesn't matter as long as it's as long as it prevents the mowing of the extra 50-foot buffer land.
Okay, so maybe we could let them come to us with something, but basically something above the ground with some height that is clear and provides a barrier to mowing. I think Rachel is next. Go ahead.
Yeah, not to pick a particular nursery, but there is a online guide, Grow Native Mass, that lists pollinator plants and shrubs that they could use as a starting point of different heights shrubs, different heights small trees. That distinction is a little blurry, but yeah, that might be a place for them to start.
Yep, and Xerces Society just published a guide for the Northeast for pollinator and beneficial insect-friendly plants with the same thing, with the sun guide and the stature guide. I guess I just want to make sure they're woody and not just something that's going to establish and doesn't become sort of unkept lawn looking, just for the visual separation of this is something different than the lawn. Alex?
Yeah, you mentioned Trillium, so I guess that's okay for me to mention, but we did talk about putting stakes in the ground, much like would be for surveying. Don't want to have somebody's lawnmower get hurt going over it, but at least it's a permanent marker. And stones, although they're big, some people don't, they are big, usually, and some people don't like them. We heard earlier that split rail fences last 4 to 5 years, but it would be nice to have something that is permanent. And I would say that we did talk about that on Trillium, and I think they agreed to pound metal stakes into the ground, which can be picked up. And if there's a problem when we have to go back, and even if they're covered over, you can find them They're metal. So maybe Trillium, is this particularly shady? I'm not familiar with.
No, it's in the Zurich Sun.
Yeah. So I'll just say an appropriate mix. I just wanted to bring up the stakes, that's all.
Yeah, those were flush to the ground, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so I just worry that that's not a good enough visual demarcation. I mean,
I'm concerned that they're not a good enough visual, but you can put something there, which we did on Trillium, which is recognizable, but rocks can move, and the metal stakes are detectable with a magnet.
So possibly in addition to something else that they
Yeah,
are a permanent
it.
marker.
With it.
Bruce?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say, is a metal marker adjacent to each one of the split rail fence uprights. So that when the fence falls over, you still have the metal thing there, and then the mowers aren't going over it because they're not hitting the fence.
Yeah, well, if they choose to do a fence, the fences exist, yeah. Well, okay, so maybe some permanent marcation like what we had with Trillium, and then something of their choosing that's a topographical, visual, and physical demarcation of that 50-foot. And then woody vegetation plantings. And Aaron, I sent you the Xerces list, and we can also give them Rachel's, but those are
Yeah, I
like
mean,
easy guidance.
I'm a little concerned about leaving it open-ended because in the original RDA approval, it was left open-ended, and I think Michelle, you were like, I rewatched it today, and you're like, could you do some blueberry plantings like as a voluntary, you know, mitigation for the driveway impacts? And the landowner was like, yes. And you're like, please be in touch with with Aaron about your plantings. And they were like, yes. And then nothing ever happened with that. And so I think if we're going to issue a notice of non-compliance, we should be specific. We want X number of plantings. We'd like to see these types of plantings installed. And when we do the final inspection, we'd like to see them in place, something like that, so that it's like this definitive, they're going to get it done and they're going to have the species that the commissioner requested.
Okay.
I propose that we ask Aaron to codify what she just said based on this conversation.
Yeah, and I'd be happy to do that offline, just, you know, come up with, you know, a plant count that seems appropriate for the square footage with some recommended species, and say, you can choose from these 5 varieties, but we want to see X number of plants of these varieties planted.
Okay, so you've heard our discussion about the demarcation. I'm going to tell you some genuses, then they would all have to be native. I don't know if any of them are not, but these are all from the Xerces list. So Vaccinium, Viburnum, Sambucus, Cornus, and Amenclear. I've never said that out loud.
Can you use common name?
Okay.
It'd be easier
Well,
for me.
I'll just send you a list because the point is that they can choose something that's so blueberry, but viburnum. Okay, I'm just gonna send you the genuses
Yeah,
because
that's fine.
There's lots of viburnum, dogwood,
yeah.
blueberry.
So
Yeah. Was it Amelanchier?
yes, thank you.
That's a service berry.
Yeah.
I just don't want to write the wrong spelling
Okay.
and mess it up.
Yeah.
So blueberries, viburnums. I don't know if they have a common name.
There's nanny berry.
There are lots of different native species, and there
Yeah,
was
I can't do the native name. Sorry, the common names. Okay, I'm just
so
sending you
Michelle, there was a pretty good list put together for the Montague Road battery storage unit.
okay, sure, that.
Erin has that. She could start with that.
And that Xerces list is really good because it's not too long and it shows how big they are and they're, you know, Xerces approved. So I'm happy to just give you this short list of genus, and they can, you know, just pick from that menu, and that would be fine. And then it gives them some flexibility for their light and stature needs. But again, woody shrubs, vegetation is the key point there.
It would be nice if they had wildlife value, which means fruiting.
Yeah, well, they're all fruiting shrubs that we've named. Okay, do we have enough here? And then I guess, Aaron, we can leave it to you to look at densities because I can't do that on here without looking at a map.
Yep.
Okay, is there anything else that we need to specify for you to move forward with this?
No, I don't think so, but I think Andre was trying to say something.
Go ahead, Andre.
I was just going to throw in the local most common viburnum is Acerifolia, maple leaf viburnum.
Yes, a lovely shrub. Okay.
And
All right. And
winterberry is great for birds.
okay, Ilex on the list.
I move
Fun.
we
They're
adjourn.
gonna
Are you suggesting Ilex versicolata? I didn't say it right, but
Verticulata. Yeah.
versicolata. I'm sorry, my speech isn't quite recovered yet.
you're saying the same ones, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so I think we're good with that one. Are we making a motion on this or is
No, I
okay,
don't
we're
think we
good.
need to.
All
I'm
right.
comfortable moving forward.
All right, I'm gonna take public comment soon, so if there's any public comment left, please raise your hand now and I'll go there. And so monitoring reports is the last thing left. Is there,
I have a couple of things if you'd reserve time, and I'm a little lost on where this was on the agenda.
oh, well, it was topics not reasonably anticipated, so that is why it made it on, but it's also timely. So you're talking about Poets and Northeast Street made it on last minute. Aaron, do you want to?
We're talking about something that wasn't on the published agenda.
That's true. But it was a topic not reasonably anticipated 40 hours prior to the meeting.
Yes.
Aaron, anything on monitoring reports?
I'm continuing to monitor sites. I think my compliance report, if others want to read my compliance memo, gives a little bit more detail. There's some other compliance updates in there. I'm expecting the University Drive permit filing before our next meeting. And yeah, there's a couple minor updates there, but nothing I want to take the time with to talk about right now.
Okay, Alex, do you want a couple minutes?
I don't think so. I just have a couple of things. The last time we had a commission meeting, in the very beginning, I asked for some time for the commission to vote on allocating some time on the agenda to consider updating our regulations. And that was approved. And I won't go into the details, but Aaron and Bruce got the details. It should be in the minutes that he's writing out. When is that going to occur?
Well, we had anticipated June, but that would be, my plan is to finish up the land use subcommittee materials and then we'll move to that. So we have 2 more meetings if we do 1 meeting per topic for land use subcommittee, and then we can address that.
Yeah, that puts us into July.
Yeah.
And I would respectfully request that we have a limited time to begin the discussion, particularly around process. How would we consider it? And not necessarily going into the details, but to talk about the process of considering it. We're not talking about very many changes. Aaron has a list, I have a list, and we've been talking about this for over a year. So if we could have 20 minutes to talk about process, at least we'd get that out of the way.
Yeah, well, what, Aaron?
So I had originally put on the June 11th meeting, but then when we discussed putting the hunting discussion on the June 11th meeting, I bumped the bylaw reg discussion to the second meeting in June. I agree that I think we need a chunk of time, at least a half an hour to discuss the regulations. And yeah, I'm also open to having a special meeting to talk about the regulations if we need to.
Yeah, so if I can still speak, hunting's that's gonna be a discussion. There are alternatives that everybody should be familiar with. We're not gonna resolve it in one meeting. And it'll probably, my guess is it'll take several meetings. And if there's a time limit on that hunting discussion, hopefully we can fit in 20 minutes. I don't know if we need a half hour, but it'd get both conversations going.
Yeah, I know we're gonna have at least 5 hearings on the upcoming agenda, plus the hunting discussion. So I do think trying to jam in the regulations on the June 11th meeting would probably not be, I mean, I think everybody's just gonna be exhausted and it's gonna be difficult to discuss into the night. So just a thought about scheduling on the agenda.
I would put them first.
Well, I don't want to have both on one agenda, so I think we should stick to the hunting, and I'm not assuming that we can't handle that in a night. I mean, we have a lot of material that's very well thought out and communicated, and if everybody reads it and comes prepared, I think we can talk about that one. So the next meeting would be beavers. So if we need a second meeting for hunting, that would be taking the place of beavers, but we could conceivably put the regulations meeting for the second week in June, Aaron, and bump beavers.
Question.
Yeah, go ahead, Andre.
Alex, can you just tell us what the time pressure is for this?
For the regulations?
Yeah, the discussion. Is there a time pressure?
The pressure is that whenever it seems like, and Dave has commented, the areas that are prone to development are marginal sites. And more, we have people approaching buffers, wanting waivers. And Amherst has suffered a tremendous wetland loss, over the 70s, even in the 60s. But when UMass was expanding, we lost a lot of wetlands, and it's the only thing we have to give away. So anytime somebody wants a waiver, then there's impacts to the wetlands. And I just think that, Aaron and I were talking about this last July and tried to get moving on it, and it didn't happen. So I'm anxious to start a process that expands the no build zone and look at the 20% allowance and try and protect wetlands better. That's the urgency in my mind, because we're not going to stop the applications to come before us.
Thanks, Alex. My opinion is that we can only do one thing at a time, meaning that I'd love to talk about that, but let's put behind us the land management regs and so on, and then maybe we can have a continuum of meetings or of discussions. So first, let's hit the hunting, then we hit the beavers, and if we have to hit hunting again, we do that, and then we give the full attention to
So just to be clear on beavers, that's only what we do on conservation land. That's not what do we do about beavers when it's on Amherst land or roads or something like that. It's simply what is the power? What would we allow for beaver impacts on conservation land? Fairly limited.
Yeah. Well, we still need the project. We need to review it.
I get it. I think the point being that let's take care of what we have pending first, and then we can attack a new.
Okay, I'm done, but I'm just anxious to get it pending.
Understood. I appreciate that you bring it to our attention and don't let us forget it. Bruce, go ahead.
Was what I was going to say. I'm agreeing with Alex that there is a pressure there so in effect it's already pending. But I see the problem that Andre has addressed. So let's move expeditiously. But I could imagine a 15-minute discussion about process if someone brought a recommendation. Here's what I suggest we do as process, and then fix it slightly and then go use the process.
Okay. So Aaron and I have done this process, so maybe I could, at my next chair's report, briefly outline what the process could look like. And that would just be a step. I do want to get our subcommittee materials done with and just get that chore done and then move on to the next thing. So
I'm sorry, and keeping in mind that leads us to a public hearing about the land use document.
Yeah,
Well,
Right.
and the regulations too. We need both.
I would
Yeah.
like to see this amendment, or it's not the process we're talking about, Michelle, is not like you went through when the wetlands regs were last updated. Yeah, Aaron and I hope it would be much simpler than that. We're not talking about a wholesale reconsideration.
yeah, but even no matter what the scale of it is, the process is the same. So yes, it wouldn't be a weeks and it wouldn't be a subcommittee, but it would still be the same steps and the same voting and the same all that. So how about
I'll be anxious to who volunteers to chair, because it won't be me.
Well, we won't do a subcommittee for
No.
this. It would be, I mean, we're talking about handfuls of
Yeah,
edits that we would review in a
And it's
meeting.
been fairly recently that we did update them, so we're certainly not due for an overhaul or a complete revisit. So I'll just talk to Aaron offline and get something succinct to just outline to everybody what the process could look like for this, and then put a frame around it.
Thank you.
And we will get our subcommittee stuff done and then move on to this. And the subcommittee stuff will turn into public hearings, but we will just budget them like we do with our other hearings, and we'll keep the regulation revisiting as a special topic. So that is my suggestion, and
Good night.
yeah. Thanks for addressing all this tonight, everybody, and we're looking for a motion to.
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
All right, Alex on that motion, Rachel on the second. Rachel,
Aye.
Bruce, Jason,
Aye.
Alex,
Aye.
Andre.
Aye, and good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.